What are the most critical supply chain adjustments dealers should consider to mitigate the impacts of tariffs, and how should these adjustments be prioritized?
Yeah, speaking to dealers already, those high turn parts for your service bays and your parts counters. So there's probably a little bit of pull forward in terms of those. A big one is tires, right? That everybody needs, nobody thinks about, that are going to get more and more difficult to find and be more expensive. So I think you're going to see a lot of this buy-in early, or have already seen it, to be prepared for those things that are high turn items. It's sort of like the big box store. You don't need 7 gallons of mayonnaise, except you're eventually going to use it. So I think it's a little bit of that. The parts you're going to turn, whether it's filters, whether it's brake pads, things like that, the things that you commonly are using. I think the dealer base has already been out there accumulating those products.
I think a used car pre-owned strategy is going to be very important to some franchises. Um, and this is a fickle market as we speak. Dealer after dealer is trying to enhance their pre-owned, and they're all encountering challenges because everyone's in the market to buy the wholesale units at the same time. But that is a business that you can depend on. That is a service business that you can depend on, and it's not going to be tariff impacted, other than as the parts that Kevin mentioned and the tires. But I would definitely be thinking about an aggressive pre-owned strategy that was going to keep my service department going and was going to keep my F&I department going, and that even without generating significant gross profit on the front end, that used car business will be critical if the cost of new cars creates sticker shock. And that will happen. I think the economy, our population will adjust. We've got to figure out just how much of this is permanent and how much of it is not. And that's probably going to take the rest of the year, because everybody says Trump is a deal maker, and we're all expecting him to make deals, and that none of us are expecting that this is the final edict on tariffs. But when it does settle in, we're going to have to make some adjustments, and I think used car perspective commitment is going to have a significant impact on the winners and losers in this environment.
Yeah, let me add a little color on the pre-owned market as I see it. Undersupplied currently, and a lot of that has to do with the lower volume of the pandemic period. So when you think about that tight supply-demand balance on the new vehicle side, incentives basically went away, and leasing is a form of incentive, right? It creates affordability, it generates transactions. So you combine a lower total volume in the market through the pandemic period with low lease penetration, and that 3-year average lease term means that 36 months down the road, what comes back off of lease, and again, that's a small part of the total 36 million used vehicle transactions per year. But they are the late model, low mileage, sort of best, highest contented off lease, used vehicles. So when you think about pre-pandemic, just to put round numbers on it, the industry averaged 17 million units up until 2019. Going back, let's say 5 years before that, lease penetration averaged 30%. So 30% on 17 million units is roughly 5.1 million units coming back 3 years into the future. Then you get to the pandemic, where we get, 2022 is a perfect example, a 13.8 million unit market, with transaction prices over MSRP, indicating the customer isn't getting any incentive at all, including a good lease deal. So leasing in 22 on 13.8 million units was in the teens. So it goes from 30% to 17%. So in 2025, which is 3 years later, we're talking about 2.4 million off-lease vehicles to a market or a segment that is used to 5 million every year. So cut in half. It starts to rebound a little bit in 2026. But what we sell in 2025, if this is a supply constrained market and we go back to a 15 million or a 15 and a half with tight pricing and no incentives, by 2028, this used vehicle market is very tight again. And not that you can't make money in a tight market, it just means that you may be paying a little bit more to acquire vehicles, because in that space, you're competing against not only the Carvanas and CarMaxes of the world that are only used vehicles and have to get inventory for themselves, but you're also dealing with the consumer who sees prices going higher and higher and higher and will just sell things themselves because it's easy to do. So there's opportunity in the pre-owned market, but it's going to be it's going to take great expertise to really navigate that and find the profit path within that really, really tight balance.
I would say that in addition to expertise, it's going to take some huevos magnos, because in most cases, you've got to step out and pay more for that used car. And there's no assurance based on history that you're going to get a good return on it. You might actually lose money on these new used cars. To give you a perspective, I think last year, the average age of a used car was 11 and a half years. 11 and a half years old, the average age of a used car. This year, it has already gone up to 12 years. It's gained. People are holding on to these cars. It's hard to get a used car out of the hands of somebody, because they're thinking, heck, if I sell this car, I got to go buy something more expensive, just like houses.
That's right.
And
Yep.
But you gotta, not only do you gotta be smart, you're gonna have to be brave. You gotta take some chances. And hey, you're talking about the car dealers.
And I think the what's an interesting angle there is you have franchise dealers who have obviously relationships with their captive finance company, and when you think about it, right, they know what leases are coming back. They know, who's financed, how old, the finance companies know a lot of things, at least the captives of the manufacturers. So I would think that there would be a lot more or a tighter direct relationship between the franchise dealer base and the captive finance companies, old manufacturers. What we saw a lot during the pandemic, and that was a little bit different because people didn't drive as much, right? Commuting, shopping. There was a lot more isolation during the pandemic period, but anything that was leased, let's say in 2018 or 2019, that was coming off lease during the pandemic was way below its mileage. So the residual value relative to its street value was very low. So you had a lot of people buying their own off-lease vehicle, which I don't think you'll get this time. So it may free up a little bit more of the market just because we are traveling. So mileage should be, which has already returned to normal. When you look at highway miles traveled in the U.S., it's already back above where it was pre-pandemic. So I think that'll loosen things up just a little bit, but I just don't think you're going to get those lease deals in the first place because automakers don't have to create affordability in this market of tight supply and demand.
Yeah, the used pre-owned market is a great opportunity, but it's going to take thought and bravado.